everyone, welcome to our video presentation. Today we are going to talk about marginal sexualities. Because it's a really huge topic, we have many concepts like homosexual, bisexual, autosexual, and asexual. So we choose to focus on the bisexual stereotypes to find out how our social media make an invisible wall between us and this particular group. Okay, let's start from the definition. What is stereotype? In Wiktionary, stereotype is a conventional, formulaic, and often oversimplified or exaggerated conception, opinion, or image of a person. It appears everywhere in everyone's daily life, and as you know, stereotype can relate it to race, nationality, and sexual orientation. It's like a label, make us easier to see the impression of a group in our brain quickly to find it. Like when we mention about the German people, many words quickly come up into our minds like punctual, rigorous, no sense of humor, or philosopher. As for black people, there are other different words like strong limbs, short-tempered, basketball, and even big organ. And one thing important we have to emphasize is that not all the stereotypes are passive. Stereotype is not equal to the word like discrimination. There are also some good words for different group, like about girls we have gentle and soft, patience, kindness. For boys we have responsible, full of energy, and rational. But when we look at the stereotypes about bisexuality, what can we get? These words are definitely more like discrimination. Narcissistic, promiscuous, untrustworthy, morally bankrupt, and even AIDS carriers. So when did us start to build such a stereotype? From ourselves, or from social media, or both? So today, our main goal is to find the evidence of these stereotypes in the media text, to discuss if they are true in bisexual stereotypes. Okay, let's start from our group mate Zoe.
So in this part, I will introduce a common stereotype in our society to the bisexual people from Amanda's book. So compared with the heterosexuality, lesbian and gay people, the bisexual people always suffer higher rate of anxiety, depression, and suicidality according to Ala and Thomas research. As Amanda suggested in his book, there are numbers of stereotypes of bisexual people and summarized 10 of them that most common in our society. One of the 10 is that the bisexual are shallow, narcissistic, untrustworthy, and morally bankrupt. Descriptions like this always existed in our society, both historically and nowadays. Social stereotypes are fixed. Bias association between a social group and specific traits. First-hand report from bisexual individuals suggested that bisexual are perceived by heterosexuals, gay men, and lesbians as the first one, confused. The second one is sexual promiscuous. The third one is less disposed to a monogamous relationship. And the last one is a repeat word. It's untrustworthy. There is a table on the screen. You can see that about a list of stereotypical description and percentage of participants. As the table shows, we can see that the description for the heterosexual woman are much more better and even more positive than the lesbian and bisexual. However, we can see that among them, the description for bisexuality is the most negative. Okay, let's move to the table more detailedly. The words for the heterosexual woman are weak, emotional, and something really good like giving mothers. For lesbian people, it's masculine, feminism, strong and independent, I think they are neutral word, but for the man-hating, aggressive, sexual, I think it's become a little bit more subjective. And let's move to the bisexual woman. The first one is promiscuous. We mentioned it before. The second one is confused. Again, repeated. The third one is not really a bisexual. All these words are very negative words and contain strongly subjective, and it's of course a classical stereotypical word for the description of bisexual woman. A very popular TV drama just ended recently called Why Women Kill. One of the story is about a couple of open marriage, in which the leading female character named Taylor is a female bisexual, and the male character Eli it's apparently heterosexual but actually a hidden bisexual. The story happened because Taylor's former lesbian lover Jade wants to join their open marriage. This story reinforces one of the stereotypes that we mentioned before, is that the bisexual are less disposed to the monogamous relationship. In this story, Jade is an out-and-out character built with so many stereotypes.
Just be here.
She was a totally bad person who has an angel face, extremely narcissistic. She was very shallow and from a small town and not well educated.
I have the same taste in movies.
Oh yeah?
Yeah, that poster framed on the wall.
She seduced Taylor's husband, which shows she is an untrustworthy woman. She's also a moral bankrupt woman who killed her ex-boyfriend and gave Taylor's husband drugs, want to broke up their families. The character of Jade totally reinforced the stereotype of our society to the bisexual.
I keep wondering why Eli started using again. Are you the reason?
Okay, let's move to the next part.
Oh my god. We shouldn't be doing this.
Hi, this is Wei. Following Zoe's part, I'm going to share my views on how popular culture treats bisexuals in a stereotypical way and on how general people think bisexuals are, air quotes, just a face, and the way bisexuals are portrayed as party animals and horny aliens in films and dramas. Arguably, bisexuals face even more bad images from society than lesbian and gay people do. It's hard to find an example of a bisexual person on TV or films that isn't a hypersexual psychopath or using their sexuality as a way to rebel. It's unfortunate to find that person who is intelligent enough to appreciate the beauty of both men and women gets constantly portrayed in stereotypical ways. Let's get started with the most common one. It's just a face. Kessler brought up in her essay challenging the stereotypes that people think bisexual people are confused, undecided, fence-setting, going through a phase, and ultimately they're getting together and settle down one way or the other. You may find popular culture falls into this trap of presenting bisexuals as a phase or a status that they'll get over with when they find Mr. Right or get tired of Mrs. Wrong. Marissa in The Orange County, Adriana in Beverly Hills, and Buffy's Willow were presented as straight before they turning gay. They were never given a bisexual identity, as it was assumed that they'd flip from straight to gay like a light switch. There is an interesting song by Phoebe Buffay from Friends, and let's take a look at the video.
Excuse me, is this where the singing lady is who tells the truth?
Yeah, I guess that's me.
She's here!
Sometimes men love women, and sometimes men love men. And then there are bisexuals, though some just say they're kidding themselves. La 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 la.
So she said bisexuals are just kidding themselves, and you can see how bisexuals get stereotyped in television. These presenting characters as going from straight to gay instead of being bi has in real life effects on bisexual people. Both Kara and Lindsay Lohan were accused of being in a phase when they coming out about their sexualities. And this is a day-to-day struggle for bisexual people everywhere. People might ask, oh, so you're bi? Are you gay or straight today? Moving to the next, bisexuals are more likely to be portrayed as hypersexual party animals. Castro said the only positive stereotype about bisexuals is that they always have the best of both worlds, a double chance of a date on a Saturday night and the serenity of being more in touch with their sexuality than lesbian, gay men, or heterosexuals. Which is very funny, as bisexuals are people, not raw sexual energy implanted in human bodies. With regard to the media, which shapes our cultural perception, has been adding fuel to these fuckboy or fuckgirl images of bi people. Are most bisexual characters are horny, crazy about sex, and cheat on their partners to have sex with the other sex. Orange is the new black. Blue is warmest color. The bisexual characters literally sleep around. You can hardly find any representatives of bisexuality where someone doesn't cheat. The stereotype that bisexual people must fancy everyone if they fancy both man and woman is ridiculous. Bi people are just as fussy and picky as the rest of human and are not ready to pounce on the next people regardless of their gender. Let's bear in mind that being a party animal is more about personality rather than sexuality. Aside from the stereotypes, I would like to share one more interesting point about bisexual on screen, that according to Hollywood's output, bisexuals in the theater are mostly women. So based on the films, you could assume the bi community is made up mostly of women. It is a bit problematic by only showing audience by women, as it might look like that it's more acceptable to be bi if you're female. And somehow women could get away with being attracted to both genders, but if a man do so, it would be gross. Moreover, movie portraits of bisexual women as beautiful, promiscuous harlots that sleep with anyone, but this only tends to feed the male gaze, as this hot, saucy bisexual becomes little more than her body and sexual orientation. To end my part, I would like to say bisexual people are similar to straight, gay, lesbian, heterosexual people. They're not going to cheat on you or give you AIDS after all of that sex, and they're not going to have suddenly switched sexuality every year. So these stereotyped bisexual images are damaging, regressive, and used to silence bi people for no real reason other than heterosexual superiority. It's time for popular culture to have real bisexual character reflecting real life on screen.
Good afternoon. The last part of this presentation is going to further explore the stereotype in sexual orientation and the fluidity of bisexuals. As we have noticed, Born This Way has become a popular slogan for LGBTQ, especially for the bisexual individuals. But my argument is that the slogan itself is a stereotype and it does not promote the equality of bisexuality. It comes from Lady Gaga's song Born This Way, and the lyrics does encourage those marginal sexuality individuals to love themselves because they are born with that. But in my point, there are three main problems of this argument. Firstly, Born This Way is not scientific and accurate.
When bisexuals is the word we are born this way, it means that their sexual orientation is genetic and biological determined. So it is your genes decide that, as is not your preference or choice. But there does a lot of unexpected changes in the sexual attractions, identities, and or behaviors. Sometimes they are transient, but sometimes they are life-lasting. And this change could be interpreted by the series of sexual fluidity, which is a capacity for the situation-dependent flexibility in sexual responsiveness, which allows individuals to experience changes in same-sex and other sex desire over both short-term and long-term time periods. So for instance, maybe you have noticed that your gay friends claim that he was born this way and his sexual orientation is to men or masculinity, but one day you find that he was just falling in love with a beautiful girl. This is because our gender and sexual development shows a lot of variability over the lifespan, and sometimes it could be changed. And the second problem with the born this way argument is that it forces the bisexual individuals justify their sexual orientation by appealing to nature, rather than their human dignity. The essentialist and the essentialism claim that the sexual orientation is natural, not a choice, and not subjected to change. But the bisexuals is born this way to express themselves, but not to the initial impulse for the sexual equality and human rights, but to emphasize on the psychological mechanism predetermined. So it's like a disease or a disability. They always say that we did not choose that, but we were born this way. And it shouldn't punish us because for something that is not our fault. It's like that they need to be pitied in order to not being punished. But I think what they deserve is not the pity, but the human right, human dignity that they should have equally. And then I would like to bring my last point. Most bisexual people are not simply born this way. When we recognize that bisexuality is sexual attraction for both men and women, although these are not always concurrently, we could bring the example of the Brokeback Mountain and When One Night is Falling. Seemingly, those protagonists all have a heterosexual object before they meet with each other, and sometimes we could not define that those bisexual desires are simply born this way, or they only encountered one or two circumstances over their lifespan which give rise to changes in sexual feelings. But I think no matter in which way, the slogan "born this way" could not advance the sexual equality of bisexual individuals in different ways, because they should do it, not because they born this way, but it's the right things to do. So here, the last part, I would like to bring out the conclusion of this presentation. So firstly, we bring out the different types of stereotypes in bisexualities, and we conclude that firstly, the stereotype of bisexuality is also depending in the reproduction of films and television works and the literary works. And secondly, the popular culture treats bisexuals in a stereotypical way and portray them as a party animals or horny aliens in films and dramas. And lastly, I believe that born this way, the slogan itself is a stereotype, and it does not promote the equality for the bisexuality. And lastly, let's come to the panel discussion. Here we're going to bring up 4 questions. Firstly, is there truth in bisexual stereotypes? And secondly, are there any stereotypical portrayed bisexual characters in films or TV shows? If so, please specify in which aspect do they meet the stereotype. And the third question, According to the Los Angeles Times, bisexual people are reported that they avoid coming out because they didn't want to deal with misconceptions that bisexuals were indecisive or incapable of monogamy. What can media do to help this situation? And the last question, do you think the protagonists in Brokeback Mountain and One Night is Falling are simply born this way, or they experience the sexual fluidity, encountered one or two circumstances over their lifespan which give rise to changes in their sexual feelings? So this is the presentation of the marginal sexuality, and thanks for your time.